NewGenGamers.com.
SEGA Genesis 32X.
Welcome to the next level.
Alright everybody, welcome back to Console Wars of the Past here. We are taking a look now at another SEGA add-on. Have you seen enough of these yet?
No, we haven't.
This is the SEGA 32X. This was a mushroom-shaped design that was meant to extend the arcade experience. What was the tagline?
One of the worst video game systems ever. Poorly thought out, poorly executed, had hardly any games supporting it. Just a complete debacle, really, and we'll get into that. But the machine itself is
Actually a pretty solid piece of machinery.
it's just basically an add-on cartridge.
Yeah.
This plugs directly into the Genesis.
I think it's actually supposed to be like a video card or something.
Yeah, it basically adds another processor to the Genesis.
Now there's a small note here. There are metal clips, but we're not going to mess with those because those things are flimsy as hell.
Yeah, they go right on top of the flaps and keep this piece of
Monstrosity.
this fire hazard from catching anything on fire. It's
Now just for visual effect, we left the Genesis on top of the Sega CD here, and left the IR for the wireless controllers in it just for giggles here. But you look at this monstrosity.
it looks like a robot.
Let me zoom back a little bit.
Compared to the Sega Genesis 3,
Yeah,
this thing would eat it.
yeah, it would. That's like, mama, mama.
But we're not done yet.
Oh no.
You put together this beast, and then, now for added effect, we're using the Sonic and Knuckles add-on cartridge and an EA cartridge, which you wouldn't use either of these with the 32X.
No, but just for added effect. Now look at the size of that monstrosity. Oh dear Lord.
It's almost the height of this Sega CD.
Wow, it is.
So,
Now, this is pretty much what we call the Sega Genesis 32X CD Tower of Terror.
or the Sega Holy Infernal Terror.
Or the Sega Holy Infernal Terror. Now, turn it around as to the reason that we call it that. Because with all the power adapters you have to hook up, it could likely cause an inferno.
One power adapter, two power adapters, three power adapters necessary to run this machine.
Wait a minute, where do you plug in three power adapters? There's usually only two plugs in a wall.
In 1992, you stretched it across the room. That was your only choice. But Sega was thinking of the consumer with this, and they released a little bit longer cord for the 32X that would go a little bit farther.
So it would go across the room.
Almost.
So, I hope you have power plugs close to each other because you're going to have a little bit of trouble.
You had to rearrange your home entertainment setup to accommodate this machine and its 30-some games. What, 20-some games?
I think it had 36 total
36.
for the 32X.
So, what was a 32X game?
This was a 32X game. Star Wars Arcade. This is vacuum sealed from our shop here, so as you see, good solid condition. So the cartridges were a little bit longer than Genesis cartridges, not much bigger, but we decided to leave these in the box just for show.
Yeah, the boxes themselves slide out of the top of the case. They're just paperboard. Yet
Yeah.
again, the cheapness of the system. They didn't stick with the nice
plastic cases.
the nice plastic cases that the Genesis had. So they're a little flimsier, but they work.
And there's Virtua Racing Deluxe.
One of the better games for the system.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid looking game.
So we'll take a look at these two, as well as another Sega title.
Yeah, we'll take a
And-
look at a third title, and pretty much that's all we're going to cover because there's not very many games for it.
It's
and
really all that's worth looking at. not a great system, not a lot of great support for it, so we're really at a loss to show anything for this system, so we'll
Kind of leave it at that.
we'll fight our way through it and show this thing off and show you why it failed miserably in the marketplace and why Sega maybe should not have bothered with it.
Yeah, so
What more can you say?
let's spend about 15 minutes. Welcome to another one of our console wars of the past. This is version 3. This is the Sega Genesis Super Nintendo 16-bit era. And today we are taking a look at some of the 32X games for the add-on for the Sega Genesis.
Which, this is technically a 32-bit console.
Technically.
Technically, if it had succeeded.
If it wasn't completely feeding off of the Genesis, too. Kind of like
A leech.
kind of.
That is one way to describe the 32X.
Now, let me throw out some wiki facts about this game. It was the first driving game to try to use fully polygonal characters. Polygonal, I think I said that right.
Don't
Polygonal.
look too bad.
There's also, in this version, which was ported from the arcade version, there's 2 extra cars and 2 extra tracks, which, is a nice little add-on. Thank you, Sega. It has a VR view system, which allows you to choose from 4 different views. I don't know if we can
Let's
do
see
that.
those vieos, Ray.
Oh, nice.
That's called VR view. That is high technology.
That's pretty nice. Oh, inside the car.
Oh.
Ghost
Now,
Racer.
I don't like inside the car.
I don't care for it either.
We'll go with standard view.
And what was the other
Actually, I
one?
kind of like the
That one
Spy Hunter
works.
top-down view type thing going
Now,
on
if you
there.
just had missiles. And it says this port was closer to the arcade than any other ones that were released. Because there was a Sega Saturn port and a PlayStation port, I believe.
well, what I'm noticing with this,
They put it on PlayStation?
I believe I read that. Maybe I'm an idiot and I didn't.
yeah, I'm not sure about that, but this game is really smooth. The 32X had some decent processing power. Obviously, as you see here, limited 3D processing power.
But at the time, this was...
In 94, this was hot stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing, though, I'm noticing is compared to early CD-based games, the animation's really smooth. The frame rate's really smooth. So it doesn't look bad.
It's kind of like a monkey ball effect, though, if you notice. Like, the background's there and the level's just tilting around it.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Of course, that's just in this view, too.
Yeah.
But
This is not the preferred view to play this in, most likely.
I don't know. I like it. I like it better this way.
Now, the 32X plugged directly into the Sega Genesis Model 1 and 2 systems, right into the cartridge slot, and was essentially another console. It had its own power supply, and the AV comes out of the 32X to the TV, right?
Yeah.
So it's
It was really a mess of wires.
basically the Genesis is a pass-through for the whole thing, and it is a mess. It is a bad piece of hardware. They decided in January '94 that they wanted a new console ready by December '94. So 11 months. You need this product designed, researched, developed, created, and on the market. And they did it. It's impressive that they did it, but it's a piece of crap. But it did pull off 3D when that was still new and revolutionary.
Now, something I have to say about this is that the fact that this thing failed was mainly due to poor decision making at Sega. Now, they were basically split into 2 divisions, their US division and their Japanese home office. The thing was, they didn't get along very well, apparently. And
That music just kicked in at the right
Japan-
dramatic moment.
the Japan office was developing the CD-based Saturn. And they told the American company, the Japanese head, which I can't remember his name right now, but I have it in the text.
Which text would that be, Ray?
The Console Wars of the Past text article, which we'll have tied in with this.
That you should check out on newgengamers.com.
You want to try it, Duck?
Yeah.
So Duck's going to take his hand at this. Okay, so the CEO tells the Japanese team to make a replacement for the Sega Genesis. He also tells the American team to make a replacement for the Sega Genesis without telling either team that the other team is creating this similar product.
It was like a race to the finish!
Exactly. And the 32X didn't end up winning that battle.
Now, here's the downside of this, B. Most third-party developers that were making games for the 32X, or going to, got their 32X development kits around the same time they got their Saturn ones. Which basically means that they had to choose between which piece of hardware they wanted to support. Guess which one won out? The actually newer technology of the CD-based Saturn.
Boy, this is terrible.
And also what's interesting is they started the development of this machine, the 32X, and then the CEO of Sega at the time, he was just having them make this hardware, and so then he decided, well, a CD system would be good too. But the problem with that is you can't expect a mass market product to sell that way. You can't sell the same product twice.
Yeah,
when it's not necessary.
That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to sell two
32-bit consoles
at the same time, essentially.
For $200 a pop. Well, the Saturn was $300. 400 at launch.
So if you wanted the 32X and the Saturn, you would have to pay $600.
So this...
Now, well, let's get this. Okay, the 32X went to market in November of '94, and the Saturn was launched in May of '95. So essentially, the 32X had a 6-month life cycle.
And a 11-month development cycle.
That's not good when your life cycle is shorter than your development cycle.
Yeah, really, and especially when the development cycle was ridiculously short. They didn't plan it out very well. They didn't put the machine together very well. Developers had trouble programming for it and complained about it, and nobody wanted to support it. Very few people did. And well, every game we're looking at here was made by Sega. There was very little third-party support. You guys want to move on? I think we've probably seen enough of this.
Let's move on.
You know, this is one of the better games for the system. Not a bad racing game.
It does have some of the best games for the console.
And it doesn't play bad.
Which is not saying a whole lot.
Alright, moving on here. We're going on to Star Wars Arcade. Now this one was done in tandem with LucasArts, and they actually made an arcade game for it and ported it over to the 32X. This was one of the better games for the system.
Hence the name Star Wars Arcade.
Yeah, makes sense.
So here you can play either the 32X Super Enhanced version or the original Star Wars Arcade game.
That's what we like to see, gentlemen.
We want the extended and more challenging levels of the 32X, because it's extreme.
I take the X-Wing.
Now this was an American developed game. Listen to this. Well, there wasn't much to it, but there was some limited voice acting.
Ooh. Check out that.
This is the power of the 32-bit processor.
It's got some really good graphics for being a cartridge-based system.
And it was a dual processor-based system as the Saturn was, and that didn't work out very well for Sega with their systems because they didn't develop them to work together.
Yeah,
and
basically only Sega could develop the best games for them. That
yeah,
was the worst
everyone
part.
else just ended up making little use of the hardware and just getting the stuff done because that's what was needed. with how short this system was in creation and on the market. Now,
with the life cycle being so short, I believe they had about 30-some games for it. I want to say 36. I think it's the official number.
so a very small library, mostly from Sega, and does that include these the CD 32X titles?
Yeah, because they released 4 of those.
Okay.
But those were actually CD games.
Yeah, so there were games that you had to have the Genesis, the Sega CD, and the 32X in order to play. And only the richest kid in town had all 3, and he wasn't going to let anyone else play.
Yeah, he was the same kid with the Neo Geo, so...
So hardly anyone played this thing. Only 200,000 sold worldwide.
Oh, nice, another view.
Oh, we get multiple views.
Which doesn't surprise me, considering he was only on the market for 6 months. What do you expect?
Now, one thing we can say about some of these games is they were 3D, at least Virtua Fighter and Star Wars Arcade, which we're looking at here. They are truly 3D games. They may not be that impressive as far as texturing goes, but they're not bad. You know, this is decent. Obviously, the background is just space, but
Now,
you know, considering what they had to work with, it's not bad.
Yeah.
This game had 3 levels. I read that it has the TIE Fighter level in the Astrofield, which you're seeing now. A level where you have to destroy the Superstar Destroyer and an Assault on the Death Star, because you must have that.
Yeah.
I just want to add that in. It doesn't play bad. I'm playing it right now. It's I don't know. It kind of feels like Star Fox a little bit, but more free roaming, kind of like Star Fox Assault. I mean, it's basically you just shoot. It's asteroids in 3D. That's the way I'm gonna say it right now.
Basically.
Yeah.
You know, and not a bad take on it. Now, as far as the lore of this game was developed in America, and one of the members of the team was a fellow named Jonathan Brandish, and if you look him up, he's also synonymously known as his pseudo character Johnny Turbo. And Johnny Turbo was
Pretty much synonymous with the Turbo graphics.
he was propaganda for the Turbo Duo video game system. He was a character created for a comic advertisement that appeared in some gaming publications. And
Katina music.
there you go. And so
the Mos Eisley band.
so if you want to read a hilarious story, look up the history of Johnny Turbo. I'm not going to go into it all here, but it ties in with it because it is a real guy, and he did help develop this game, and he is, we assume, a loser.
That's probably a pretty good assumption there.
Well,
And we also have video footage of him. Actually, we'll include actual video footage of Johnny Turbo with this video, and we'll link in the site where you can find out about him. So stay tuned at the end of this video for more.
For all your turbo needs, stay tuned to NewGenGamers.com.
For all your Johnny Turbo needs. So this, again, we don't have much to talk about the 32X.
It was a failure. There's no way around
I'll tell you what the Sega 32X had that no other video game system ever had.
What's that, Ron?
Quang.
Quang!
Yes, WWF Superstar Quang was in the Sega 32X version of WWF Raw,
Nice.
and that was the only version of Raw that had Quang.
Wow.
Wow.
It
I
was
mean,
it was
We're both
thing-
impressed.
The bonus features you get.
it was things like that that made you
I would drop an extra 200
Have-
just for Quang.
it
I
made
don't know about you.
it made you look at the advertisement for the 32X and think that's kind of neat, but I'm probably still not going to buy it.
Now, was this compatible with Sega Channel?
I don't
believe.
think I don't think it was around
Was
long enough
Quang
to.
compatible with the Sega Channel?
Actually, he was.
Oh, wow.
He
Because I think the port that you needed to hook your Genesis into the cable was taken up by the 32X.
okay.
At
No,
leech!
how did-
It's a leech!
It really is.
Now,
the other
something else I wanted to throw in is I think that pretty much all development for this system was handled by the American team. There was no Japanese interference with this.
There should have been.
There should have been.
There should have been. But
They could have
considering the
used
time
it.
frame they gave them,
Yeah, so we didn't see the Yu Suzuki titles. We didn't see the Yuji Naka titles. That stuff ended up on the Saturn.
Were they just doing magic mushrooms for 6 months while they were trying to create this thing? I mean, for Christ's sake.
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
It may work for Miyamoto. Not gonna work for you.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure all the games were only developed by the American team as well. Whoa. Autopilot? I must have destroyed all the fighters.
one thing about it, though, is it required a separate power supply, which, of course, was one of the big brick plugins of the day. And so if you had the Genesis, the Sega CD, and the 32X, you had to have 3 power adapters, fat power adapters available. Wow. So, but Sega thought of the consumer on this. They knew that no goddamn person had that many power plugins right there. So what they did was they included an extra long cord with the 32X power adapter. It was about 2 feet longer.
So you could reach your other power outlet from across the room.
So that was so you could stretch it across the room, so that when Dad walked through, he tripped on it and broke it, and then got pissed at you.
Yes.
Is what that was for.
And you know what? This tower might be the biggest fire hazard I've ever seen in video game history.
Because you
sucks so much power, too.
You know those big block power adapters just got so hot.
So hot. And if you do have them plugged in, one thing, you have to have them on a power strip or one of those 6 plug-ins. So you shouldn't have that much stuff plugged into one to begin with.
It's.
I don't think this total product passed any sort of UL or consumer guidelines as
None
far
whatsoever. If you walk too close to it, you would mutate, basically.
There
was so much radiation coming off
it gives you cancer just by sitting
just
near
by looking at it, you can get cancer.
We're actually now sterile by combining the whole machine. Because most people that played it were adolescents at the time, so it didn't matter.
Oh, wow.
But we're done now.
Well,
all right, so there was
thank God that I had my...
I think that was our 32X rant. Let's check out one of the half-decent games for it.
Hey, this is pretty good. I'm almost to the end of the level.
Ray's going to win this game.
I actually am a big Star Wars fan. If you haven't been able to tell from some of my earlier videos, I always try to sneak a Star Wars game in.
There's not many video game fanatics who hate Star Wars. Ron's one, but he's about the only one.
I'm one of the few, and the other nerds get really pissed at me whenever that comes up, so I just try not to mention it.
Let us check out this game.
Let's check out Knuckles Chaotix on the next episode of Console Wars of the Past Part 3, Sega 32X. That was way more powerful than it needed to be.
That was dramatic as hell.
Mysterious machine has appeared in homes across America.
32X. Redouble his power.
Go! Just stick it in your Genesis.
Alright, baby.
Can we see that again?
32X.
Let's go!
Increase the power of the unit. Increase the power of the unit 40 times.
Hey man, your set was stolen. Back out! Back out!
Welcome to the next level.
For those who purchased something other than a Sega Genesis,
Yeah, that's it.
our sincere condolences.
What a waste.
When you start with the Genesis, you can always add a Sega CD. And new Genesis 32X. Everything else is cold and stiff.
Burial or cremation?
Burn it.
Welcome to the next level.
Sega! Sega! So this was their attempt at a Sonic title on this one. It's kind of like a spin-off.
Now, this has a long history. Let's talk a little bit about the history. For those who know, there was a Sonic Crackers or Sonic 4 demo that is available.
Not a demo.
Well,
it was.
go ahead and talk about it, Ron.
Well, no, go ahead and talk about it. But it was an unreleased prototype.
Yeah, it was an unreleased prototype. And basically, you had Sonic and Tails, who were linked by 2 rings, or a chain that was like 2 rings, and the characters were always in tangent with each other. And what they did is they affected each other, as you'll see in this gameplay here. And this one actually goes a huge step further in it.
Yeah, it was kind of like a leash between the 2 characters,
Exactly.
and they couldn't. Both characters had to move simultaneously, so you would have to basically whip the other character to make both characters continue on.
Yes. Now, you'll see that mechanic in this game, and it really plays into it a lot. And I believe this is also 2-player simultaneous, but we only have 1 controller at the moment.
Oh, can we plug that other one in?
We can plug it in if you want to.
Yeah, let's check out the 2-player aspect.
Once you find that, I'll talk a little bit about the Chaotix. Now, Sega created a whole new team of characters. Now, a couple of these guys have made appearances in other games in the Sonic universe. The biggest one being Mighty the Armadillo. Mighty the Armadillo was originally the prototype for Sonic in the first Sonic game. Also in the team...
Now, that's very interesting.
Because they went through couple of different characters before settling on Sonic, who's a very hip character at the time, with the backwards mohawk, and the speed. And Sega was really trying to sell, the hip aspect of Sonic. That was weird. And so the other characters in this Chaotix universe are Mighty the Armadillo, as I said, Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, Charmy the Bee, and there were 2 characters who were robots who were Dr. Robotnik's henchmen who turned good or something, Heavy and Bomb.
Yeah,
now,
so we're going through a tutorial here of how to use
Hold the B button.
the characters.
Right. Charge the power ring.
And as Duck said,
Let go of the B button.
the Sonic Crackers prototype didn't have as complex of move sets with it. It was you could basically run and throw your other
I
character.
think you can skip this demo, by the way.
Can you?
Yeah, I think you can press a button to skip it.
Please, can we?
No.
Leave.
Wait.
There it is.
Yeah.
Alright, excellent. Into the gameplay. Now, the characters in the Chaotix team had, different character traits that would help you in gameplay.
I'm giant.
Mighty the Armadillo could scale walls and run faster. Vector the Crocodile could do mid-air leaps and climb walls. Espio the Chameleon could walk upright and use his tornado move, which you can see if you press the button, if whoever's playing the Chameleon. And Charmy the Bee could fly. Now, the thing that I like, this is a little personal note, is that I liked to read the Sonic comic books when I was younger. And there is a Knuckles comic book itself that used the Chaotix characters in it.
It's not letting me
So
play.
that's where I met these characters first, was through the comic book. So to be able to play this game, to me, was a big deal, because I tried to play it for years, and I could never get a hold of a copy of it. So to see it in action is a big thing for me right now. As you can see, the leash aspect is really playing in. You have to have both your characters sit on a switch to speed up your charge. Instead of pressing down and whatever button over and over again, you have to use your other character to charge you. Like you'll see right now, somebody has to stand on the Knuckles space to open this door, and someone has to stand on the Chameleon space, the Espio space. And you'll feel like the friction between the 2 characters, as you can see. So you can't go too far.
Yeah, it does feel like I'm being pulled.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game. Now, you see...
Some vector graphics there.
Yeah, we're getting to check out the power of the 32X here.
They're kind of overdoing this whole thing.
It's doing a lot of things that the Genesis definitely couldn't do, as far as scaling the images and the layering of the backgrounds and foregrounds. If you can hear the music, it's got a really upbeat, almost CD quality audio track, which sounds pretty good. So, this is really cool. This is, as Duck said, basically the Sonic 4 that never was.
Yeah.
So
And these characters became part of the Sonic lore.
they
were in
did.
later games.
They're in other games.
Such as Sonic Heroes, and I believe 2 of the characters made an appearance in the Arcade Fighters game.
And so they're just in the lore, and of course it's Knuckles as the main character. So
I always felt that Knuckles was hipper than Sonic. Did anyone else feel that way?
that's what
he was the anti-hero of the series.
Yeah, and Sonic was almost that way to begin with, so he was like, whoa, this dude is rad. So of course when they did the 32X, they did do the right thing there and give Knuckles his own series and try and promote this character. Whatever,
Albatross.
the echidna, and they picked the most obscure animals for
Is
their.
it echidna? I always said echidna. Is it echidna?
I don't even know what that real animal is, so I'm not sure. But you know, they picked really obscure animals for this, so I'll give them points for that. I don't know.
I don't know. Somebody check that for us.
Somebody send us one in the mail. Now.
Send us the echidna in the mail.
Petsovernight.com.
There you go.
Right, there you go.
I like the way the graphics look. It's definitely taking advantage of the 32X's abilities.
Yeah.
There's so many colors on screen.
Yeah, and that's impressive. The 32X was capable of 32,000 simultaneous colors, which is way more than the 16-bit consoles could do. They could do, well, the Super NES could do 256 on screen. I'm not sure what the Genesis was, so that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, the system is definitely an upgrade from the 16-bit systems, but it was not the system.
It wasn't a next-gen system, is what they were trying to sell.
You know what?
That was the thing.
I'm noticing the problem.
It could have been, but everything else was better, and it didn't do anything that well. You know, it just was not the right product.
Now, the one thing I don't like about this game is it does not have the speed of a Sonic game.
Yeah.
You're being slowed down a lot because you seem to be going through levels or advancing upwards through a stage. I'm not sure if the rest of the game's like that, but, you know, the appeal of Sonic in the beginning was the speed.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, ledges where you have to stop, and a lot of that probably has to do with the mechanic of the chain or the leash and trying to keep the character with you. Now, what I'm curious is if maybe Sega looked at that in the game design and lore of the character and were like, well, you know, this really doesn't fit the design of the Sonic mold. Why don't we alter it?
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
true.
you know, it really fits Knuckles climbing the walls there. That was slick.
Yeah, a lot of the characters fly in this game, and that might be another thing. Maybe there's a lot of levels that go vertical instead of horizontal.
Yeah.
I'm noticing
it keeps
that.
going up and up and up.
Yeah, so
Fades. I'm not sure what the next level is. It seems like this one level just keeps going on forever.
So this is really cool. Now, was this developed by the American team as well? Do you guys know?
I believe
offhand?
so.
I believe
Actually,
so.
I read that a lot of the Sonic games were developed by American teams.
Yeah.
It's just under the supervision of the Japanese.
Yeah.
That this game, I'm sure, was. It seems a lot different. I know it plays a lot different than a regular Sonic title. Even though it looks like one, even while you're playing it, though, it's a lot different.
I'm just guessing, since pretty much everything else on the 32X from Sega was from the American teams, that, you know, this one was too.
Now, this game is a lot longer than the average Sonic game, so there is a battery backup. You have save points in the game that you can get to. But it does have the bonus levels, and it has your enemies at the end of the level instead of animals coming out. No, look at that. That's pretty cool. You see some scaling there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did some really...
Jump in that. Oh, yeah, baby.
They did a really good job with how it all looks.
Whoa,
Whoa,
here we go.
How's this controlling, Ray? Is that kind of jerky?
No, it controls fine. It's just kind of weird how the camera goes.
Yeah.
Cool.
And once again, this is slow paced too, even compared to, you know, the bonus level in Sonic 2.
Yeah,
it really is.
The bonus levels in the
You know
Sonic
why?
ones.
It doesn't have blast processing.
What is blast processing, Ron?
Blast processing is a generic buzzword that Sega made up to describe the processing power of the Sega Genesis.
Oh, you can choose different players
Get the bee
now.
and the crocodile, man. I want to see them.
So, yeah, blast processing really doesn't mean anything.
He's like tiny.
Wow, this is kind of neat. I'm being amazed by things right now. I like that.
Anytime you have a bee involved,
I think so.
I mean, you pay attention.
Americans love bees.
I think anyone likes bees.
Oh, is this a mini?
Except when they sting you.
This is where you choose your partner.
Oh.
Apparently I get the armadillo. Well, they kind of made a mini game out of it.
So this is the character that was the original design.
No,
of...
this is the chameleon. We already
Oh,
saw
okay.
him. The armadillo was the one with kind of like the horns coming out of him. That was the original design for Sonic. I mean, they went through a couple different characters. And I also read something I thought was interesting. Sega, for the first Sonic the Hedgehog game, instead of having that Sega at the beginning of the game, they were going to have a 4-member band that you could play with, and the crocodile was actually going to be part of it. He's going to play the synth keyboard. But they had to abandon that concept because they couldn't get it right and it took up too much memory.
Now, one thing here I'll throw out about the Sega Genesis, since that kind of reminds me of it, is the Sega Genesis had a lockout code, which no console before that had, I don't believe. And
I think the NES had that, didn't it?
Well, it was different. Like, the way it worked was that they had to program into the game that beginning the Sega.
What the hell is this?
When that Sega thing appears at the beginning of the game, that has to be programmed into the game code, or else the game will not load.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
So you have to put from Sega in order for it to appear.
Huh.
And so that's how they tried to stop unlicensed games. And eventually companies found workarounds for that, but it ended up frying systems and stuff, so it was probably Tengen. I can't recall offhand, but I'm thinking it might have been the nefarious Tengen who would not.
Apparently, you need to be tripping to play this game.
This is pretty out there.
Wow.
Oh my god.
You're like a bee.
This is crazy.
You can reach out and touch him.
I can't see him.
He's being covered up by those numbers. Evidently, he's doing something that needs to be censored. Now, Ray's playing the bee. Do some of the flying moves. I saw you doing them already.
What, like that?
Yeah, that would help you a lot with these vertical levels.
Now, here's something cool, too, is with all the...
You're just skipping everything.
With the variety of characters, you can go through these levels differently, and the characters actually animate differently. You know, with the bee, he's going to move around differently than the other characters. So, this is overall a really well put together game.
It's a cool project. I like the idea here. Unfortunately, it came to the wrong system.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guarantee you, well, not guarantee you, most people missed this game with only 200,000 32Xs sold worldwide. Not many people saw this thing. And it was almost clearanced from the time it came out. Shortly after coming out in England, they were offering rebates with the system.
And what, 5 free games, I think it was?
Yeah, they started giving out free games, and...
This might have been one of the free games, so most people that owned a 32X might have this game.
Well, I mean, at the time, Knuckles...
Was
you know,
hot.
if you were into the Sega culture, you know, Knuckles is obviously a selling point, and especially with the rest of the lackluster library for this thing.
Like I had mentioned before, I bought the comic book series for Knuckles, and you know, I really enjoyed these characters. I like the way they look. The character design, I think, is excellent. I mean, and you know, the comic book series, I liked how they worked as a team, even though Knuckles was a little bit of the anti-hero. He was the Wolverine of their group.
He was.
But
he stuck his knuckles into things.
Whoa, he literally was. Oh my god.
Whoa.
But I really like the way this game looks.
This game looks really cool.
So, is there anything else we want to say about this?
Yes, the Sega Neptune.
Oh yeah.
This, for some reason, Sega for a period decided that they were going to name their projects after planets in the Milky Way galaxy.
Sega's out of this world, man.
In our solar system, yes, because they are out of this world. I guess I don't know what their theory was. I guess it just sounded cool. So they had Project Neptune, which was to be. We seem to have.
Technical difficulty
That's
with the
all right.
32X.
Keep talking about
So, okay. Another reason why the 32X failed.
Yeah, they were not exactly the best built hardware.
We beat the level and the game freezes. So, okay. But the Neptune was to be a product that was a Sega Genesis and 32X combined into one system that was going to retail for $200, but it never saw the light of day.
Which is really unfortunate because I think that would have been their best bet.
Yeah, especially for the price tag, but, you know, too little too late is what it was.
Now, I will mention that this is the 32X's original code name was Project Mars.
Yes, so there's the Mars, and so Saturn actually ended up being the name of their next console, the Saturn, and I think that was it.
Neptune was supposed to be the one in between.
There might have been a Jupiter.
Jupiter was in the works.
Jupiter never saw the light of day.
Jupiter never saw the light of day.
Which is almost technically true.
And this plays like Uranus.
Yeah, 2-player is very sketchy.
Yeah, we're checking out the 2-player aspect of the game here. Now, what are you guys swapping out there when that does that?
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Threw you at the screen. Ha!
What is that doing?
Ha!
What is that doing? Anything?
It's showing off the 3D capabilities of the system.
Is it switching characters?
I have no clue.
I'm just fucking with the buttons.
Anyway, I think we've run out of 32X commentary.
So let us shut off this
system. Let's put this thing back to rest. We're gonna seal it back up for prosperity and
put it in a
bury
time
it.
capsule.
And maybe someday, in about 10 years, we'll come back to this
and still say it's really not anything. It sucks.
And we'll get like 5 more games for it or something. Who knows?
And they're probably gonna suck worse than.
They did have Doom on this.
You know what?
It
and
sucked.
I read that Doom was worse than the Super Nintendo version.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it wasn't even the complete game because, again, they rushed this crap out. But what we will have to get, though, is Night Trap 32X CD.
Oh, yeah.
Night Trap CD 32X, however the hell you call whatever the title would be.
Night Trap CD 32X.
And that was one of the games that was to sell the system, guys.
This plays a lot easier with 1 player.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right there is one of the top 5 reasons why the system failed.
Check out newgengamers.com.
How did you end up with negative 78 rings?
I have no idea. Check out our Console Wars of the Past. This is
How is
version
that possible?
Version 3, the 16-bit Super Nintendo era. And
don't buy a 32X.
Don't buy a 32X. And if you don't remember your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Sega.